46, our special council budget meeting, and we're still on 4.1, which is presentation for the proposed operating and capital budgets. Motion still remains on the floor. We've gotten halfway through, just moving up to planning and development and operations and infrastructure next. So we will ask Madam Planner to go ahead. Somebody got their volume turned off. We're good. Okay, please go ahead.
So thank you through you. The budget for planning and development this year is similar to previous years. The slide that's on the screen right now, based on projected revenues this year, we're actually looking at a reduction of our overall budget in terms of costs in $35,000. So while we were experiencing increasing costs, we're also looking at increased revenues. So it balances out. Moving on to the next slide, just an overview of where we're at right now from a staffing perspective and who we are. So planning and development includes planning, building, and bylaw enforcement. Within the planning department, we have a planning technician. We currently have a contract planner and are trying to recruit for a senior planner. We haven't been very successful with respect to recruitment for that planning position. This year in 2022, building has increased. We've got 3 building inspectors now and a chief building official. And in bylaw enforcement, we have 1 bylaw enforcement officer. So just looking at plan, can you go ahead 2 slides, Megan? Looking ahead at 2022 and what we've accomplished this year. In bylaw enforcement, we've brought forward the administrative monetary penalty bylaw. We are getting used to using it now. We have issued some fines under that bylaw, and we will be proceeding to build that bylaw further over the coming year. In the building department, we recruited 2 new building inspectors this year. In October, we assumed the authority for septic inspection and review, and we also completed a review of the building services and associated fee structure this year. With the recruitment of the 2 new building inspectors, we're also looking at succession planning for the department. We're working at closing out long-standing files, and we have moved ahead with more prosecution this year than we have in previous years with respect to construction without permits, and that doesn't meet code. In the planning department, we've looked at the short-term rentals. We completed our public consultation July through September this year. We have initiated a process and efficiency review and are starting to map our processes. There's been some legislative changes this year with Bill 109 and Bill 23 that are going to impact how we process planning applications and the timelines associated with them. So I'll touch on that a little bit more. And we've been consolidating our bylaw as we go with the zoning amendments that we've done this year. So for 2023 priorities, Councillor Gorell, earlier you mentioned software. We have been doing some demos looking at software options for automation and streamlining processes. This also came out of the recommendation of the service delivery review that was done for the township. So we've done some demos. We're looking at options for further automating planning, building, and bylaw enforcement so they're integrated and can collaborate with the other online software platform that we're using with the township for inquiries. There hasn't been any money included in the budget for 2023 with respect to that, because right now we're looking at what might be suitable. So it's anticipated that if we do find something, we'd be coming forward with a report, or that we would be looking at a 2024 implementation, because we don't have the resources right now to devote to doing that. We've been processing our applications in accordance with the Planning Act. As I said, there's been timeline changes put on us under Bill 109. So effective January 1st this year, if we don't have planning or site plan control applications and zoning amendment processed within a certain period of time, we have to start refunding application fees. So there's more onus on us to make sure that our processes are tight and that we're getting things done within the legislative timeframes. This year, just looking at applications as well, we processed more minor variance applications than we have in previous years. We're up to, I believe it's 57 this year, whereas last year it was around 39, I believe. So it's been a big year for planning applications as well as looking at inquiries for development review. We processed more development review applications. I believe we were up at 80 this year. And last year I think we were at 50 last year. So the inquiries keep coming forward and we're moving them as quickly as we can, which are probably going to likely result in further applications coming in. So in terms of our priorities, the flood hazard identification mapping that's included in the budget, we've included an amount of $76,000 for that. That would be coming out of a special reserve fund, so it wouldn't affect the tax base. That has come forward. The Conservation Authority approached us. They are applying for grant funding for that to cover half of the cost of the study. The $76,000 is attributed based on a per kilometer fee based on shoreline. So that would apply to the St. Lawrence River and all of the island properties. What that would do is update all of the flood hazard mapping for that area, for that frontage along the St. Lawrence River. The mapping that we currently have is 30 years old. And so it would update that, which would also feed into our zoning update, which is tentatively scheduled for 2024, and that mapping, as well as potential official plan mapping. It would also assist with asset management and climate change planning, understanding what resources we have in flood prone areas. So there's a lot of use for that.
Just as a quick question, if we were to do this floodplain mapping on our own, just in our own municipality, would it be the same amount of money or would it be considerably more because it's specific, not just like the whole of the township?
If we were to do it on our own, we would cover all of our water bodies, not just the St. Lawrence River. However, it would be more expensive because, as I said, they're applying for a 50% grant on this. In addition, it's a very specialized field of study and it's going to involve a lot of field work. So the reason that the Conservation Authority is bringing it forward is because there's grant funding available. They've completed a similar project in the Kingston and Napanee area and now want to move in this direction because this updated mapping is something that we use for every application we process on a waterfront property. So there's a lot of value to the updated information.
Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the planner. Is it true that basically the CRCA has been relying on our mapping and other municipalities' mapping to come up with some of their results as it stands right now? Because our mapping is more current and more accurate than what they have?
I can't speak to that. I don't know what mapping they're relying on when they're doing.
Because we had some provincially significant wetland issues and some other issues within the municipality that we in fact had the information that we provided them.
That likely would have been MNR mapping.
Thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the Director of Planning. This maybe is a little follow-up to Councillor Lackey's question. What type of mapping are they using, or what type of program are they going to use to implement this? Do you know?
I don't know the specifics. It would be digital mapping that we would end up owning for our township. The scientists, the geoscientists that would be doing the work would be going out in the field and actually mapping the floodplain lines. I don't know the technology that they would be using, but it would be a qualified professional preparing the information.
Okay, thank you. That would be a little more reassuring. As Councillor Lackey had stated, we had a number of incidents, we still have them based on that mapping that are not accurate. But if they're going to use this method, that should not only upgrade it, but make it more accurate. Thank you.
Yep.
I know of a number of instances where things that are up 40-foot cliffs are on a floodplain, which makes no sense. So it would be more reassuring to have more accurate mapping for not only our peace of mind, but also the peace of mind of those people who own property in those areas. So,
Sure.
oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Olkey.
Most mapping is now satellitic. And there's also use of things called LiDAR, which actually gives you the ground interval. I know that when my request was put in, CRCA was surprised that IBI had found floodplain on my property that the CRCA didn't know about it, but it was courtesy of the beavers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. So moving on, the other item that's a priority for 2023 would be the community improvement plan. There's $35,000 included in the budget to do this. Again, that's a transfer from a special reserve fund. It would be proposed to go through an RFP process and hire a consultant to lead that. The other item is the short-term rental public input and enforcement options review. So we've done the public consultation. We need to bring forward a summary of the review and options for council's consideration. As I've mentioned, implementation of Bill 23, Build More Homes Faster Act, that's going to impact a lot of our processes. At this point, with respect to heritage, every property that's listed on the register that's not a designated property is required to be reviewed for significance within a 2-year time frame, or it's required to come off of the register. Other items with that are changes to the site plan control process. So we no longer are able to apply site plan control to a property that has less than 10 residential units based on that legislation. There's a number of other Planning Act implications. And so we need to understand what all of those are and how it works. Another component of that that's significant is every property within a serviced area, which would mean Lansdowne, is now as of right entitled to 3 residential units on the property, notwithstanding that our zoning may restrict the number of units. So that overrides our zoning. So we need to look at zoning amendments and potentially official plan amendments to implement that legislation policy. It's effective immediately, but we need to look at some parameters to look at our capacity and allocation. So that's work we'll have to do in 2023.
Follow up, Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, the Director of Planning. If you're not, or we are not allowed to have site plan control on 10 units or less, is there going to be any at all?
It would apply to commercial and institutional. The other element that's been removed from site plan control is also landscaping and architectural design. So it's taken a lot of teeth out of our processes.
Thank you.
Councillor Grow.
Is that retroactive or is it going forward? And has it passed?
It has passed. It was passed on November 28th.
Mhm.
If we have a property that has an existing site plan control agreement registered against it, that still remains in effect. However, going forward, if we have a property for development that has less than 10 residential units, we can't apply it. So for example, if we have a property that has a single family residential use on it and they're building a marine facility and the shoreline protection measures we'd like to put in place through site plan control, we do not have that ability any longer.
At the risk of being granular, what about Huck's Resort and
That
Marina?
still applies. It's a commercial site
Oh, it's commercial.
and we have enough residential units on the property through the proposal
Yeah.
that it would still absolutely
Thank
apply.
you. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Jameson has a question.
Just want to go back to the community improvement plan. In terms of how, not so much detail, but how do you approach that? Is it strictly from a planning lens, through a planning lens, or is the broader community involved in developing priorities for what a community improvement plan is?
So the community needs to be involved in developing some of those priorities. However, we're limited in terms of what can be achieved through a community improvement plan. So a community improvement plan applies to private property. So it can be used to incent certain types of development and to encourage things in certain areas. So Main Street beautification, there could be incentives to paint and repair your buildings. There could be incentives for landscaping. There could be a reduction, say, in a building permit fee for a certain type of development class that we want to see happen. Grants for certain types of things. So there's a number of things we can do, but what we need to do is speak with the population and the residents in the areas and figure out what it is that they really want to see and what some of the incentives could be.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, I understand that. I guess when I look at, particularly the two villages I spend most of my time in, community improvement means somebody getting the garbage off a piece of property on Lyndhurst Road. I'm not sure if a plan to do that is as necessary as whether we think we have sufficient tools to try to encourage people to clean it up. That kind of thing seems to be more top of mind in the conversations I have, as opposed to some grandiose scheme. And I'm not saying it's grandiose. I'm just saying we move to beautification from let's get the garbage out of that lot.
Yeah.
Like, how do we connect those dots?
That's what we have to look at. Community improvement plan only goes so far. Then there's working with community groups to improve areas and working with property owners to clean up their properties through bylaw enforcement. So a community improvement plan isn't going to be a plan that's going to go in and say, everybody has to clean up their property. It's a way to incent, it's an incentive. So it's a reduction in building permit fees. It's a program. It's a way that you can put in different measures to try to encourage people to do what you want to see done in a local area.
I have Councillor or Deputy Mayor Olkey and then Councillor Gorell, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a little more into the weeds. Is one bylaw officer enough for this township? Based on the workloads, everything I hear is calls not returned, all this kind of stuff. Hear that a lot about people called staff, but our bylaw officers are really heavily pressed with a lot of things.
So as we move ahead with AMP and start generating some revenues through bylaw, right now it's the bylaw, the cost of enforcement is all on the taxpayer. In terms of having more bylaw enforcement officers, we're not that big of a township. I mean, certainly there's a lot of bylaw enforcement issues that we could benefit from more than one officer, but at the same time, we need to look at implications and how that would work. Currently, I do have Frontenac Municipal Bylaw Enforcement on retainer to back up our bylaw enforcement officer when necessary and to help us if we have our bylaw enforcement officer on vacation and need somebody to assist. And that's been working well so far. I think that I wouldn't recommend another bylaw enforcement officer at this point. We need to see how everything's going to work with the AMP bylaw and further enforcement going forward first.
Councillor Gorell.
Through you, Your Worship, and I apologize for taking us backwards here a little bit. But at the beginning here, Committee of Adjustment, I'm unclear as to, I'm looking at a net change of $66,000 and I don't quite follow. We had actual expenses and then suddenly this year coming up, 2023, I see none of that. Is that a salaried position that somehow got moved out of there?
Yeah, we just moved to. Sorry. So previously, the Committee of Adjustment is its own line.
Yeah.
But what we've done this year is reallocate the application revenues and some of the expenses back into the planning budget line so that the Committee of Adjustment budget that you're seeing there is just the committee budget. So it's just the honorariums and mileage, similar to what we do with Heritage Committee, so that the operation and the application revenues all fall within the planning budget lines.
And that's a change then.
That's a
from
change
previous
from
years.
previous years. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, it was just.
And I think that all the directors and the treasurer appreciate the patience of the council regarding as we tighten these guidelines up and we get more and more precise about how we allocate expenses and costs, that we can really truly drill down to the actual cost per individual who's working in either department, per building, per piece of machinery. So it's really an important process, and every piece of information that comes forward just makes us that much more precise. So go ahead, Director.
Thank you. So the last item on our priorities for 2023 is just further consolidation of our existing zoning bylaw, updating certain areas of that zoning bylaw in preparation for a new bylaw and mapping project in 2024. Our mapping right now is currently all just scanned paper mapping. It needs to be brought up to a current standard. It needs to be based on digital property fabric so that it can be integrated with GIS. So that's that we'll be working towards having all of that ready so that we can move into that project tentatively in the 2024 budget. So as I've said, with respect to bylaw enforcement, everything's pretty much status quo as it relates to bylaw enforcement. We're going to monitor this year. We're going to build the AMP bylaw to see what other bylaws we can bring in there. Parking is one of the bylaws that we will be bringing in for sure this year. So we're anticipating that there will likely be some increased revenues through bylaw enforcement this year. For planning and development, one of the main changes in the budget this year, I'm proposing that we make the current contract planner a permanent planner position. We have a lot of work on the go. We have a high volume of applications with taking on septic review. Every application for that, as well as building permit, needs to be reviewed for zoning compliance. So on top of managing our application volumes, we're also doing those reviews. We have a lot of policy work that needs to be done that we haven't been able to get to. So given the volume of work, we're stretched for resources right now. Having the contract planner has been very helpful, but I don't see the workload decreasing in any way. We are currently recruiting for a senior planner. So Mr. Fair left the township mid-November. We've posted for a senior planner position because I was hoping to recruit somebody with a little bit more experience to help oversee some of the planning function a little bit more, which would allow me to be freed up to help oversee bylaw enforcement and building a little bit more and get some of the policy and strategic objectives done that need to be done. To date, we haven't had an applicant based on our posting for the position. So we're having a very difficult time trying to recruit to backfill that position. So myself and Kyle, who is our planner, have been very busy just keeping the day-to-day running at this point. Our revenue projections for this year or for 2023, we've updated those to be consistent with the current volume of applications and revenues that we're seeing. As I mentioned, the community improvement plan and the flood hazard mapping would be funded from a special reserve fund. And at this point, we don't know the full extent of the costs that will be associated with implementing Bill 23, but we will monitor that and report back to council if there are any additional costs that come up that we weren't planning for. In terms of building, we had a surplus last year in the building budget. But when we look at the building reserve fund, what we haven't been accounting for previously were overhead costs, operating costs. So building hasn't been paying their share of hydro, office space. So this year, the budget is a little bit different in terms of including those costs and allocating them to the building reserve so that we can bring forward the true cost of delivering the building service. With updating the fees earlier this year, hopefully we'll be recouping more accurate costs that relate to providing the building service. Our costs have been updated to include the additional staffing. We have some training. We have some significant training this year with some of the new staff to get all of the qualifications that they require with respect to septic and other areas of qualifications. So those areas have been increased, as well payroll, training, uniform budget lines. There were reports brought forward to council last year with respect to leasing vehicles. So at this point, we've only leased one new vehicle because our fourth inspector is obtaining his credentials right now. He's doing his training that he needs. So I haven't gone ahead with the lease of a vehicle for him at this point, but once he is qualified and able to go in the field and do inspections on his own, I will look at bringing on a third vehicle for building inspection. And we have increased our enforcement this year significantly with the additional staff being on board. I believe this year we have issued 72 orders for construction without permits. Last year we issued 36. So we're pursuing a lot more enforcement with respect to construction that's occurring without permits, and having the additional staff is allowing us to do that. And that is it for me. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councillor Garrell.
Sorry to backtrack once again. The proposed CRCA flood hazard in the St. Lawrence River is, what was the completion date that they had considered here?
They haven't retained the consultant yet, so they don't have the completion date, but it would be within the 2023 calendar year, is my understanding.
And I guess theoretical question, if we're dealing with floodplains and so on, and our setbacks are based on high water mark and wave uprush and whatnot. What would happen if that was to change? What would happen if this flooding hazard identification changed their current model? Would it just be from the date that we accept it, that moving forward, this is your new standard of setback, or does it have any retroactivity?
So the setback would still likely, it's hard to say because I'm crystal balling.
Sure.
But the setback from a floodplain right now is 30 meters.
Yes.
It would be, continue to be 30 meters, but it would be from wherever the updated floodplain actually falls on a property.
Sure. Interesting. And on that budget number, is anybody sharing that with us? Like Gananoque, town of Gananoque, or does our township control all of those islands up to, say, Howe Island, which is Frontenac, I think, in the islands? Is that correct?
Yeah, every island that falls within our municipal jurisdiction would be at our cost.
Gananoque, do they have any islands that fall within their jurisdiction?
I don't believe so.
But CRCA does not include Howe Island or Wolf Island.
Not for us, they wouldn't, but because that's South Frontenac and the islands, isn't it?
No, they're not part of CRCA's.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so just for clarification,
Yeah.
Gananoque does have a shoreline on the St.
Okay,
Lawrence,
yeah, they're.
but they don't have islands.
Okay, we're responsible for those.
Yeah.
For the islands. Okay, and do we have to participate in that program?
We don't have to participate in that program. However, it would be,
Like, what's our benefit, I guess?
our benefit, it would be significant. So first of all, if somebody comes in with a development proposal on a
Yeah.
property
Yeah.
and we're unsure where the floodplain is,
Yeah.
it's on that individual to go out and bring in a surveyor to do the mapping to identify the actual floodplain on the property.
Right.
So by having the updated floodplain mapping, that's giving us the updated mapping for all of the properties on St. Lawrence frontage,
Mhm.
which saves the landowner having to do that or verify that through an approval process. It also provides the Conservation Authority with that updated mapping for their own use. In addition to that, with the zoning project that I'm proposing for 2024, because we do need to update our zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
That would give us up-to-date floodplain mapping for all of that property.
Before we, and again, maybe I'm getting into this little hefty here, but before we accept that, I would, do we have any say in how this study is done? I mean, look at the fluctuations on the St. Lawrence River in the last 5 years. I'd be curious the methodology, and is it up to the CRCA to say, hey, here's the methodology we use? Do we review the methodology? How do we satisfy ourselves spending $76,000 that this report is solid? You know, where's the peer review? Where's our review? Where's the whatever review?
So at this point, we are not committed to this study. I wanted to ensure that the budget is there,
Mhm.
given that they are doing this study.
Mm.
As I said, it's a very specialized field of
Yes,
study.
it would be.
To have somebody do this. It's a coastal engineer geoscientist that would be doing the work.
Mhm.
Based on the CRCA's experience working with other consultants that do this type of work, they would determine what the methodology is. Certainly before we would put the $76,000 in, we would have to come back to, I don't even, like, they haven't confirmed anything with us at this point. These are preliminary numbers.
Okay.
So we would have to come forward to council with a report before we could allocate that fund to that project, once we know more about the methodology and the details.
We're not committed. A report has to come forward probably as to satisfy our departments.
Absolutely.
That this is a good process, and then peer reviewed and full on scientific study.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you.
I have Councillor Fode.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you, the Director of Planning. With regards to this mapping and what you alluded to here a moment ago, once complete, if we choose to go this road, once complete, it would expedite the applicant's application, because everything would be current and right there. You had mentioned they wouldn't have to go out and get their own geological study for floodplains. So then it would tie in with the restrictions you have now of paying them back should you not meet a deadline. Is that right?
Absolutely. It would be beneficial to anybody that comes in with a planning application with a waterfront property on the St. Lawrence.
Okay, and the only other question I had was regarding your posted 2 leased vehicles. You had alluded to at some point getting another vehicle. The other would be up and above these two?
No.
That's
no,
part
we-
of,
At this point, we have one truck that's owned.
right?
We have one leased vehicle, so we have 4 inspectors right now.
Right.
We have 2 vehicles, so I would go forward with a lease for a 3rd vehicle once our 4th inspector is trained up and out on his own to do inspections.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the planner? Seeing none, you are released from your duties and we'll move on to operations and infrastructure.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm here to speak on behalf of the Operations and Infrastructure Department. If we can just move to the first slide, thank you. So just going down the list here, Public Works, we're looking at increases, and I'm going to mirror what everybody else has said, insurance, fuel, and maintenance costs. We have added an additional $25,000 for the private road grant within this as well. Additionally to that, the cost of our supplies and contracted services have gone up. Granular prices have gone up, sand prices have gone up, so that accounts for those additions. Garbage collection, we have spoken with our contractor. We do not anticipate any increases this year. For the landfill sites, it's additional coverage. So we have another part-time employee, which is helping provide coverage, because we do have some challenges with vacation, with sick time and those types of things. So in order to keep the doors open, we've added an additional part-time body for that. The source water protection, we are working away at that. We're getting really close to having all of our risk management plans completed and speaking with the Conservation Authority on that. We're down into single digits in terms of our risk management plans that we still have to complete. The municipal drains, we're working with the 2 consultants, and I think you guys remember from last year, we had sought an extension. So at this point, Robinson is our 1 consultant that's dealing with the Poldervart, Webster, the Smith Bulger, and the Creek Road drain. And then we've been having conversations about the Jones drain as well. Front of Young does not recognize the Jones drain as a drain any longer. So our what is our prescribed outlet no longer exists. And there's some push from the consultants believe that we would be better served if we were to abandon that drain at this point. There is a process for that where it would involve the residents affected. The rest of them right now, we have submitted our applications through Robinson to the CRCA, and we're just waiting for the review to get that back. With McIntosh Perry, when I first came on here, there was a changeover on our end, obviously, but also changeover at McIntosh Perry. So the lead on that file had left the company, and it kind of fell into the queue. So we've got them back up and going again, and they're looking at Pierce Blasco. We're at draft design stage, and then the Bierman Allen they're going to be submitting for approvals at this point. Moving on, facilities. So the addition within the facilities is as a result of the citywide program, the prescribed maintenance activities for that. And then in parks, it's the maintenance schedule that the Director of Corporate Services has prepared for all of the parks. It's the mowing and the weed whacking and all those types of things that we do at the various parks. Additionally, we are looking at another position where we have had somebody part-time through the winter, and then also a student supervisor in the summer, making that a full-time position. And that will help us we'll have more municipal memory moving forward, for one thing. And it'll allow us to properly maintain our rink, our parks in the winter, the garbage collection, the snow plowing of parking lots, and the waste sites. It all rolls into the big picture of our minimum maintenance standards for our roads and those types of things, which I plan on bringing to council a little bit later. And then also working with the students in the summer for the maintenance of these parks and having sort of a lead role with the students for that maintenance program. Thank you. So an overview of 2022. Our capital road projects. We successfully completed the rehabilitation of Taylor Road West and Boundary Road. It was replacement of some fairly large culverts, a lot of ditching, gravel, and putting a surface on that. While we were out there as well, we did some drainage betterments on Airport Road that I think we'll see some benefit from. Water access points. So we're now getting into the final stages with the Ivy Lee Wharf. We had a PIC that was well attended, some really good feedback from a lot of the residents and councillors. So we're hoping that to get the approvals through the CRCA and MNRF if required, then start the construction within the fish window once we get out of that into July and with completion in the fall. Facility projects here at the administration building, we have undertaken the timber structure review. When I first came, we were looking at approximately 21 members that had to be replaced, and that now is down to 2 with some structural remediation required, screwing some of the beams and some of the posts. So a big reduction in the required replacement of the structural members. The Escott facility, we have applied for Ontario Trillium Fund grant. Not sure of the status of that one yet, but we have engaged a structural engineer to look at the design. We've also undertaken an asbestos abatement review. There is some asbestos within that building that we will have to remove, so that will all be tied in together. Fire hall design is currently underway, and I talk about that further along as well. We had a meeting with our consultant yesterday who provided an initial layout of the facility. Looks pretty good, nice detail, a lot of detail actually. So hoping to provide something to council in January, a bit of an update and some cost estimates, and then we might have to make some decisions and pare some things down, but we'll do that collectively. 1233 site works, we have engaged Jewel Engineering. They're looking at where our fuel facility is. So we have an issue with the capacity of our existing sand dome. We need to expand it. With this type of dome, you can only expand to the back, so we have to relocate our fuel. We're also looking at the drainage. We are in the source water protection zone, and we do not have an ECA for our drainage currently on site. So we're looking to address all of that. And then looking at the structure of the parking lots as they're coming to the end of their useful life. 1 Jesse Street, we have undertaken an asbestos abatement or review with that one as well. There is a little bit of asbestos down in the gym area within the stage. So we're looking to get that addressed. Additionally, there's some flooring that needs to be replaced. So that's moving forward. That's our hope. We've assessed it, and now we know what our plans are moving forward. We have worked with a group called Garland at 1 Jesse as well, and looking at the roof of 1 Jesse Street. It needs some attention, not gonna lie. We can band-aid that one currently for about $20,000, but we're looking longer term at a roof replacement that it needs to be redone. Cost of that estimated right now is about $400,000. So that's upcoming. Road drainage projects. We did some ditching in the spring at Old River Road. We additionally did some ditching at Back Street, at Kidd Road, Cook Street, Bay Street, and Hag Road was a big one as well. I think we addressed some long-term drainage issues on that one. So we've been really busy trying to deal with the water that's seems to be more frequent and more intense. And hopefully the systems that we put in place will help alleviate that. Asset management. This is something that I think we should be proud of collectively. Council for allowing us to take this process on, working with finance in our own department as well. We were successfully implemented the facility data into the program. So our capital program, long-term investment is in there. Our maintenance requirements are also in there. So we see the big picture now of what we need to invest in our facilities. On top of that, our route patrol, which was typically paper-based and I could say slightly inconsistent, is now in the program as well. It provides us with the timelines that we have to do our inspections on the various roads. And we are achieving our required inspections. And then internal inspections in citywide. So all of our facilities require monthly inspections, our parks require inspections, and all of those programs and processes have now been incorporated into citywide as well. So it's been a very successful year for asset management. Waste management projects, the big one right now is the ESCOT capacity, where we went from having to looking at closure in 2021 to now having 19 years plus for remaining capacity. So that was a big success this year. The hydro service at Briar Hill and ESCOT, the approvals have been ongoing. We're hoping that this will get wrapped up. We've been bouncing around a little bit with Hydro One with, I don't know if it's retirements or change in duties, but I think we're on the right page now, and we hope to have all that dealt with this year. And the purpose of this hydro service, we're looking at bringing in facilities for the staff. Right now, where the facilities they're working in are inadequate, and this will address that. On top of future planning and future growth, where we can move into compacting units and ultimately transfer stations will be set up for that moving forward. This is a big step. Takes a bit of time with the planning, but we're slowly starting to make it. The CAS lands, I plan on coming to council in January with a discussion about CAS lands. And then the yard waste facility design. That's at the Lansdowne facility, where we successfully updated our ECA in 2022, that we can accept yard waste and we can mulch it and provide it to the public. So they can come and get mulch from us. And additionally, what isn't used by the public, we can use for interim cover at the waste site where we couldn't previously. So that another big win there. Utility projects, the municipal water EA. Everybody knows about this one, where we're not meeting our requirements for fire flows as defined by the fire underwriter service. So we're undertaking that process. We have engaged DL Richards for that, and they are moving forward. I see emails coming back and forth between the ministry and JL. So that's good. Means it's underway. Wastewater capacity review. That should have been moving forward. So we have engaged GL Richards to write a letter to the ministry, but I think the bulk of the work for that one will be in 2023. And then the water meter replacement program. So this is another big success for us. Historically, we had anywhere from 70 to 85, sometimes higher water meters that we're not reading, which means we're unaware of how much water each home, each business is using, which throws it out. If we were to have a leak, we wouldn't really be able to nail down where that is, because we wouldn't see the spikes. So now we had tried to undertake this previously last year by using our local provider, and it was not successful. So we worked directly with Neptune, who is the supplier of the meters. And we, at this point right now, we are 99.54% done. We have one meter that still needs to be replaced. So that was a huge success. We had a meeting this morning and they updated me. Do we want to do anybody have any questions about what we've completed this year before I move on?
Councillor maybe has one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to Operations Director. With the meter replacement, have we seen any difference in costs yet in collection?
Some of them we have, where we have had a single service feeding multiple units where the meter is not working. I think that's a safe one to say, right? So I'm looking at the deputy treasurer here, who sees all the numbers that come in. But I believe that there have been some where we've been, charging them for the base rate, and their consumption is much higher than what the base rate was. Now that also comes with the other end of the coin, where they're upset because their bills are much higher than what they typically are, but it's based on consumption. So a little bit of education required moving forward.
Okay. Any other questions for the director before he moves on? Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Worship, through you to the director. Just clarification, the Lex Road drainage project. Was that done this year or in 22? Or sorry, in 21?
The Lexbro drainage was completed in 2021.
Okay, because I purposely went out there after heavy rain this past fall because I was coming home and I took a little detour and that's working well. I'm assuming the residents involved with the problematic situation for a number of years are happy as well. I haven't spoken to either one.
I haven't heard from them either. I like going to the doctor. No news is good news.
Thank you.
You.
Counselor Jameson.
I never know where to throw these things in, but since the water system was mentioned, it certainly is of concern to some of us to know, I'll put it that way, that the full cost of the water system, including the time of senior staff and any other operational staff, is clearly present in the budget and accounted for, because for obvious reasons, it's a user pay system. And I think from my point of view and others that I talk to, I'd like to be assured that that is in fact the case, that it's a full cost application system. And we're not, because of all the things I hear about, senior staff's involved, this, that, and the other thing, how are we accounting for that?
Thank you,
Thank
through
you.
your worship. The Director of Corporate Services can actually speak to that. She has a presentation, but
Yeah, through your worship. So I'm happy to answer it now, but we can talk about it again too, because we do have a separate set of slides to go over the water and wastewater budget, which we hope to get to after we get through the municipal budget. Currently, there is a flat amount that's allocated from the municipal budget to the water sewer budget. That was set up before I came here. I can't even tell you exactly how it was derived. We aren't necessarily accounting for all of our time in the water wastewater budget. That's partly due to the financial plan that's included as part of the water wastewater budget, which as it stands right now is actually in worse shape than the municipal budget. So I can definitely understand the rationale behind wanting to do the full cost recovery. I think if we can go through that presentation, have a look at the financial plan that's for the water sewer. My hesitation around doing a full cost recovery right now was it will just put those utilities further in the hole, and or their rates will have to go up even more.
May I just follow up on that? I hear what you're saying. I'm not without empathy, but I think if at some point when it becomes clear to everybody that we can't really afford this water system, nor can our residents, particularly with some of the capital challenges we appear to be facing and maintaining it. I think it's going to be very important for us to be able to make the case that we know exactly what it is costing us, exactly what the users should be bearing in terms of the cost, so that when we turn to the provincial government and say, here's the keys, because I think at some point, when we're not the only ones with these very small water systems that, looking it up and seeing others are having similar challenges, we're going to have to get some relief from the higher tier. So my point is, one, residents who are not on that system should not be paying for that system. And that's why I'm concerned about showing the cost. And two, in order for us to make a strong case down the road to get some support for the system, because I think that's where we're going to, I personally think that's the road we're going to have to take. We need to be really tight on the numbers. So that's the point of my whine on this subject. Thank you.
Any other questions for the director? Councillor, maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to Operations Director. I know that over the last year, you've put the counter out on many roads, and I looked through the binder here to see if you had any charts saying what you had, let alone the long-term plan or the asset management of all the roads, since it's one of our larger entities within our jurisdiction here, and what the schedule was for different roads to get different treatments or repair. And I know that you listed some for this year, but not the complete list of the whole township. And I know we've seen one of them maybe a couple of years ago in one of your briefings. So just wondering when we might be seeing one of them, or whether we can get a revised one for the council. Thank you.
Yep, we can do that. So in 2022, our hope was to complete the traffic counts of the entire road network, but we were unsuccessful retaining a student for the summer. We're looking at doing that again in 2023 with the hope. So all of our gravel roads have been completed with traffic counts, and we're looking to get all of our hard tops as well, and then we'll be able to provide all that information.
Thank you.
Okay.
Counselor Fody and then Counselor Lackey.
Thank you, your worship. Through you to the director, with your last comment, with those traffic numbers on the gravel roads, did any of those trip off being upgraded to a hardtop surface of some sort?
Yes, thank you. There were 2 roads that did trip. The first one was Washburn Road up by Tackerberry's yard. And we were looking at 375 cars per day, with a lot of them being heavy trucks. And then the second one is Dariaw Road off of 32. And that one was 300 cars right on the nose, which we had established as our informal threshold.
Excuse me, 300 is the trip point?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The only other question I have, getting back to the environmental assessment for the waste or the water study, sorry, what time frame is anticipated there? I know you said the emails are going back and forth, but is there anticipated finale to that?
So the anticipated timing for the PIC, that's the next step on the calendar for us. They're hoping for the summer, June, July, for the PIC for that
Thank you.
process.
And Counselor Lackey.
Thank you, your worship, to the director. Can we just touch on the private roads grant increase for one moment,
Yes.
if we may? It says in there, and again, I don't have the sheet in front of me to quote, but we're looking at helping them to bring their roads to a certain level. Is that a level in which we would take them over?
Through you, your worship. So the purpose of the private road grant, there's actually 2 streams now. Council in 2022 approved a capital stream. So previously we had $25,000 for the operating stream, which was the maintenance. It's having a contractor come in, do your plowing and sanding and those types of things. And now the capital stream is trying to achieve a cross section that would help serve emergency services for getting down there. We have some challenges currently where, emergency services can't get down the lanes, and that poses an issue for people that live on private lanes. And I think I can safely say that we see more development happening on private lanes. So we need to get those lanes up to a standard where we can provide that emergency service. So that's where the second stream of the capital came in, where we provided an anticipated width of platform and clearing of trees and ditching and all those types of things for them. But the expectation was not for the municipality to eventually take them over.
Okay, just to follow up. I was certainly in favor when it first came out of this project. And I know there are more groups that have become an organization now with books, and we needed to increase that amount in the budget for that purpose. But I just wondered to what extent, because they did build on a private road, knowing it was a private road. Again, I guess it could go back to the water and sewer. It's those roads typically aren't used by the entire township. They're not township roads. So I guess it's a fine line, and I'm just playing devil's advocate because, again, I'm in favor of the project. It's just, where do we stop? When do we stop? And come to a nice number that they can get some gravel in, they can get some grading done, they can get their little projects done without going over the top to the taxpayers.
Yeah. So
If they are taxpayers, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely. So the purpose of the capital grant is where the municipality will contribute 50 cent dollars up to a maximum of 5,000. And that depends on how many applications we receive as well. So I have some of the local land associations have been proactive and reached out to me, and they tell me that they have these big projects where they want to achieve, roads all the way in with hard surface. But not appreciating that there are going to be competing lanes all over the place that are going to be looking for the same money. So I try to explain to them that the best bang for your buck would be to break it into phases and do that investment over a longer period of time. Start with your brushing and get that cleared out, because that's the biggest issue that I've heard from fire services, is that they can't get in because they're hitting their trucks off branches. And then the next one is deal with your drainage. You don't put a surface on a laneway without dealing with the drainage, or everything that you've just put on the surface will wash away. So it's taking that staged approach to get there. And then once they've achieved it and we're satisfied, then that's pretty much the end of it. And there is an approval process for the private road grants as well, where if they're seeking something that doesn't actually fit the bill for what is in the plan, then the municipality will just let them know that it does not meet the thresholds for that. Okay.
Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Councillor Lackey's question just tripped off a thought. When you did the road count on the gravel roads, was there any road that looked like it should be decommissioned as a township road? Like over time, there's less people on it. There's, I don't know. I can think of a few roads that we maintain that have one or two houses on. And I often wondered how they even became township roads to start with.
So the unfortunate thing with the municipal act is that once we have maintained a road, it's now in the possession of the municipality. Some roads are 25 feet wide, but if we have continuously provided that service to them, they become the responsibility of the municipality at that point. They become a forced road. We have some roads that deviate from the right of way, as an example. And once we've provided that service, then it becomes ours till the end of time.
But could I, just to expand on your comment, if say a road that became ours was surface treated, but has nowhere near the traffic, can we take it back to a gravel road rather than a surface treated road? Do we have that authority to do that?
The municipality does have the authority. We have to provide
Rationale.
maintenance to that road segment, but it doesn't specify that we have to maintain a paved road as a paved road. If we take a paved road to a gravel road, I think we'll hear everybody at the door.
Well,
but,
and I can appreciate that wouldn't be a decision we would necessarily take lightly. However, when we're looking at other roads that require much more, just because of traffic counts and safety and what have you, unfortunately, that's why we sit around this table, is to make those difficult decisions, and we have to maintain minimum maintenance standards. And if we have, say, a surface treated road that's falling apart, but there's 10 cars that go on it a day, why was it ever surface treated in the first place, right? And there could be very good reason, but just that we have to go through the process. So,
yeah.
Any further comments or questions? I've got Jameson and then Garel.
Just back to the private roads. I think over the time that the road grant, the base road grant was brought in, has been a good thing for those of us who live on a private road. And the capital grant, I think, is a good idea as well. But my question really is, when you're communicating, is there a way that you can communicate with the residents of the lanes? I know you're working with the associations, and when you're dealing with a Gan Lake Lane Association, whoever you're dealing with can speak for everyone. It's a couple of roads are like that. I'm not sure about my road, but part of it is the communication or lack thereof the association makes with the rest of us. And I'm just wondering if there's a way of communicating directly with the residents of these lanes so they understand the grants are there and what they're for. It's not to circumvent the communication with the association, but I'm not quite sure if all of us up and down these various lanes know about this and are thinking about it. So it's just a suggestion. Thanks.
Thank you, through your worship. So as part of the application, you have to host an AGM and then provide minutes from the AGM. So to speak with the residents, I think that the ideal time would be to attend the AGM if required and have a conversation with the groups. And I'm happy to do that if that's what we feel is necessary as this is moving along.
Excellent. Councillor Garel.
Thank you. And to your worship. And the asset management planning and so on. First question, did we complete the building assessment? Was that all completed? The building assessment report?
Yes.
Okay, then my second question, and much broader, because it informs our financial planning, of course, is what level of confidence do you have in the input to date in the citywide software to be making the projections we are making for 8 years and out? We've been at this for what, 2 years, inputting information into the asset management, I believe, into the citywide. And so my question is maybe a bit broad, but what's our confidence level in it to date? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a great question. When we received the information, it was from a group who didn't know our facilities. They come in and they assess it based on that day. They don't know what the usage is, who the groups are, any of those types of things. So we, as part of putting it into the citywide program, it's also been run through the citywide group, and they have picked up some things, and we speak with our facilities group as well, and they have provided some input on, why are we doing this now and why are we doing that? And there's better ways of doing that. So we have tweaked the plan a little bit so that it actually makes sense. There were some projects that were up and coming or had been completed in between as well. So an example is the septic tank up in Station 2. That was one that popped up as a big project that was overdue and had to be completed. Yet we had completed it about a month after that report had been done. And we're undertaking some of these studies like with Escott and Springfield House already that were already initiated before we had completed the BCA. So we have been fine tuning that as we go, and we'll continue to fine tune it to have better information. But overall, I would say we're about an A minus. I think we're in fairly decent shape with what we have.
And just one final maybe comment. As we move forward, this is a fluid document that's been made very clear, which is great. And when I say the document, I mean even the financial plan being informed by the asset management plan. And as I read these hard numbers, on a piece of paper, I have a hard time conceptualizing how it is that year to year to year we revise this. If there's a shock to the system here, and when I say shock to the system, something that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, like a new water tower or something that might be available. How do we incorporate this, and how are we supposed to make these wonderful decisions? I'm baffled when I look at the numbers. They're significant.
Mm-hmm.
The increases to the taxes are significant. And yet I don't fully understand how we have this ability to be fluid. Everything seems hardened, like we're going to do this road then, we're going to do that road then, this is coming up now. And I just don't fully understand how this thing is a fluid document. And with the budget items that you'd be responsible for, they'd be significant. So I'm not sure if you found a question in all of that.
Yeah. But
I guess I just question how it is that we as a council with these great systems we have in terms of computer generated down for a bunch of years. And I'll be asking further questions on this, but what's our confidence level? How does it work, but do you feel confident that we can make these changes? And what happens if we have to do something mid-year or something of that nature? Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of it, you gave a great analogy with the roads. Every year we update our road costing. We put out a tender for surface treatment, and at the end of that year, we update what the unit cost is. It'd be the same with the facilities. If we go to replace a hot water tank, so you see the big number for that individual facility, but within that, it's broken into components. It's your electrical, it's your plumbing, it's your roof, it's your siding, windows, doors, all those types of things, flooring, you name it. It's all broken into individual. So as we go and we do projects, we update those individual components at the same time, which will revise the number. And we've also included in the longer term planning inflation. So inflation is already written into the program for moving forward. If the cost today is $10,000, it's $10,200 next year, as an example. Yep.
Sorry, if I could just add something to that too, through your worship. So, I think really, it's a tremendous amount of work that we've put into this, and mostly Dave. And the thing is, when you ask about the confidence, from the asset side, I don't know the assets as well as Dave, but to me, what it is instead of like shooting blind, when I'm saying we should increase the reserves to transfers by 5 or 10 or 15%, I'm actually, like if the data is 70% accurate, at least I'm basing it on something that, and we're going to continue to improve it, right? So like every time he makes a change because we have better data or something does blow up. Yeah. Sorry, Dave. Not to blame Dave, but if something happens, it changes the capital numbers, like then we will update the plan, and at least like it's I feel way better coming to council to say, this is the first year I'm bringing the plan. Will it get better? Sure. I'm sure I can find ways to make improvements to the accuracy. It is estimates. We are basing it on, some professional judgment. I'm basing it on 2% inflation, which is probably low. There's no growth assets included in our plan yet, like anything assets related to growth. So, if we need another plow truck because we have to plow so much more or whatever, like that's not included yet either. So like there's a lot to it, but at least it's not just like picking a number, right? That's how I kind of look at it. Anyway.
Right. Okay, I have Counselor Maybe and then Counselor Fody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to the asset management, since I work in it every day with multi-million-dollar buildings, really, this is a very big item to try to grasp all the things that are required in a particular facility and when. So this asset management plan, I feel, is got us in a good direction, and with the products and how long they last, breakdowns, different variables that which we cannot even forecast at this moment, and having clear foresight to get the work done on time, because even though you have a product that's supposed to last for 25 years and it only lasts 15, there's something that you have to really look at, and it's difficult to forecast some of that stuff. So having some items that are listed properly and you have expectations, this is a large plan, because one thing looking through this that I seen is this township has grown over the years, many years that we've been around, and all the assets that are here and what it takes to maintain everything is so large that I think this asset plan will help us. As much as we see some numbers here that we may not be fully liking, it's still reality. And we have to go with that reality and make sure that we can sustain what we have and keep growing as the community we are. Thank you.
Counselor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, it also provides confidence in planning, right? You had mentioned the word roof a minute ago, and that tweaked the question I meant to ask a while back. 1 Jesse Street, we're redoing the 400,000 you mentioned is redo the type of roof that's there, or has there been any thought to changing the roof to a steel, like to a truss and steel cladded roof? Just change the roof totally. I know what our own building down the street here, we're looking at that very question.
Currently, we are looking at patching the areas that need to be rectified until we've had further discussion with council on what the next steps are.
Okay, so,
I have-
right.
I
Counselor
apologize.
Jameson.
Counselor Fody is always so inspiring. It begs a question I wrote down somewhere and then I couldn't find it. At some point, we look at all the assets. We've got Community Hall in Sealy's Bay, which will cease to be a fire hall. We've got Jesse Street, which, you're going to patch that corner, and then next month you're going to patch another corner. I mean, it's, it needs rethink. We've got a couple of other things. We've got a garage up in Lyndhurst. We've got things, and I just wonder at a certain point if we can consider looking to staff to bring us an assessment on Springfield House, an assessment of what should we continue to support, continue to own, what might actually have to be declared surplus in order for us to try to move down the road without the weight of some of these things are going to be nothing but cost. And it's not to pass judgment on any one building or any one project, but we should probably have some idea of what the offload implications are of some of these assets. So that's just a comment. Thank you.
Add it to your list of things to do, ladies and gentlemen. Any further questions before I want to keep this or this presentation moving because we still have to get through this and hopefully into the water wastewater here shortly.
Okay, so 2023 priorities. Looking for waste management to continue to work with the waste management working group. We have some thoughts around organic waste currently and some of the things we can do there. And then looking at longer term options, hopefully being able to have a voice with the county as well at some point. And then completing the CAS land acquisitions as required by MECP. For roadwork projects, we already have a ditching and culvert list as long as my arm, and it continues to grow every day. Brushing is something that we need to do more of. We find that the brush is growing faster than we can keep up with it. So we're going to be addressing that. And then the gravel resurfacing program, which I think now we have a pretty good handle on our 3-year program and which roads will need it more frequently than others. We'll be finishing the 3rd year of the 3-year program. I can't believe I've been here my 3rd summer already. So this will be year 3 and going forward, we'll have a better handle on which ones should be 2 years. Some of the class 4s maybe should be 2 years because they see higher traffic as an example. Fleet and equipment, I think for every department, we want to try to focus more on being able to maintain our fleet in-house. It is certainly more cost effective for us to be able to do that. Facility maintenance and capital. So there's going to be more details about that further, but the list was predominantly generated from citywide. Water access, that's actually capital. That would be Ivy Lee that we're speaking to later. Utilities would be completing the EA for the water and then initiating the EA for the sanitary system. And then as of January 1st of 2023, we will have a new contract with Aqua. So that's the first time that has gone to market since they took over the contract in 1993. So that was a big task that we took on this year, and we're moving forward. So just to continue with the solid waste management, upcoming projects will be capacity review at Lansdowne. Ministry of the Environment has supported us looking at that. Surveying is supposed to be completed next Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we'll have that information in the new year to initiate the process. The yard waste facility at Lansdowne, again, that's taking in the brush and leaves and then being able to mulch it and make it available for the public. The hydro service at Briar Hill and the hydro service at Escott, which I'd already spoken to, and the staff trailers at Lansdowne and Briar Hill. So in facilities and parks, these are repairs and maintenance projects. It's our electrical and plumbing and HVAC. It's some of the studies that we have to complete and some of the plans as well. It's the like the fire access plans and just maintaining what we have. Historically, we did not have a record of these per facility. So now we have a.
Just as an aside, it's page 73 in your binders, just so that if anybody's looking for it, you can refer back to it. Sorry about the interruption, Dave.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so it's breaking down each facility and its required maintenance. Yeah, that's what that slide is.
This is also a direct result of asset management being able to nail down as much, but
Yes,
the comment that the finance director made about it's easier. It may not be 100%, the data may not be 100% correct, but even having 70% of the data to make the decision is still a better decision because you have something more concrete to go on.
Yep.
And that pertains to the planning part of it too. So thank you for sharing.
That is the end of the operational.
I've got Councillor Gorell with a question. Is there anybody else who has a question? Councillor.
And through you, your worship, could I ask that I don't think there's any financial implication at this time, but could I ask that specifically the Rockport Customs Park be indicated on these documents as a separate entity? It is an asset that has been improved by a community group, and they're gifting it to us, an asset worth over $600,000. And never is it mentioned, and I'd like it on here specifically under its, we have all sorts of things listed here. No, it is not. It's under a building, but the park itself,
You're talking about.
I'd like it fully implemented, documented, so that people understand what it is and how it got there.
So
Thank you.
not, just to clarify, not specifically the facility itself,
No.
but the property.
The entire property.
Yep.
Because it's significant. Thank you.
Okay, and then Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, to Director of Operations. On the Prince Street garage, a $30,000 change, just wondering what that might increase, I guess.
I think I'm missing it.
It's right at the top of
Yeah.
page 73, so
Line 3.
Prince Street Garage.
Okay, so I believe that the Prince Street garage is heating. That's an increase in heating if I'm not mistaken. I think it's as a result of having a mechanic in the shop now and having to open the doors more often.
Oh, well, I guess that's a benefit.
But it was, I do remember that one jumping off the page, that the heating was a great increase in, now there's also increase in the heating fuels as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So obviously that has some implications, but I think it's us working on our own equipment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the director? Councillor Jameson?
Yeah, just in trying to work really hard to understand all this in the big book here. And I really appreciate some of the breakdowns. But I'm sort of a little hung up on pages 69 and following 2 or 3 pages. And the 69 starts with building maintenance on the facilities. And then we move to operating citywide report from citywide for the facilities on page 70. And then we move to, well, loan payments, right? That report there, for example. And then there's this report here. And then we move to a discussion about outdoor costs. So my question is, Your Worship, in assessing the long-term viability of all of the assets, should we not publish what it is costing us? Say, let's take the community hall in Sealy's Bay or Centennial Park. How much does it cost every day to run that place?
Yeah, so through you, Your Worship, we're going to get into that more, I think, actually in the capital section, but the 2 tables you're referring to, 6970 or whatever. So one table is coming right from the finance software and the other table was coming right from our asset management.
Okay,
And so the idea behind it was to try to show that they're aligned, like what we've budgeted for in finance software is almost, in a lot of respects, it is exactly the same amounts, or it's close because it's based off a lot of it, the work we're doing now on the operating side, not just capital, but in operations. Like a lot of the work that Dave's team is proposing to do in 2023 is based on what our asset management program is feeding us.
and I see all that and I appreciate the work. I'm just anticipating that we may have to make some fairly hard choices
And
over
then-
the next 4 years and
Yeah, there's more information from a total facility cost point of view, including capital in the capital section that we're going to
Okay.
go into next.
okay.
Okay. Okay, we'll ask that the director move on with his presentation. And I think you said that you're done that part of it, or you've
That's the
done
end
done?
of the operational budget for 2023.
Now I gotta get back to my.
Now we're into the 2023 capital budget.
Sorry, Counselor Jameson, were you trying to get my attention? You need a 5? Yes, we need a 5-minute refreshment break to, because we did have lunch. So, okay, We'll be back at 2:10.